All right, so now we're on the next one down, children's literature and socialization. And once again, I'm using block 1BD, their Google page, but everybody has the same assignment, so it should be pretty easy to find. So we'll flip the thing around. So children's literature and socialization. All the direction and all the links are in the document. I do put a little disclaimer on here. Once you do this assignment, some of your childhood memories may be ruined. Sorry. So with this assignment, we're going to go through some stories that you've probably heard in your life. So stories and movies and TV programming provided for children has the purpose of preparing kids to be members of society. Sometimes it's to teach them how to count like Sesame Street, or teach them how to be good people like Mr. Rogers, and how to be curious. Most of that PBS stuff. Today, you're going to evaluate children's literature, and this is going to be some classic children's literature based on the message it sends to children and the role and their place in society. Now, if this was real life, we'd be together and we would pick up books from the front of the room, just like we did when we went to Millard Hawk, and you would read these books as a group. But instead, we're not together. So I have found on YouTube 4 stories that you may have heard when you were in elementary school, or maybe your parents or your grandparents or somebody read them to you. So I heard some people in class talking about how much they love the stories of No David and how naughty David was. So I found a YouTube version of No David, a book that my kids like to read, mostly because I have a daughter named Sophie and she used to get really angry. She's much better now. So this story is called When Sophie Gets Angry, Really, Really Angry. So someone reads that on YouTube. Or a lot of you are Curious George fans. I mean, The Man with the Yellow Hat, mostly because of that fun movie, and the books are great. So you can listen to a Curious George, or a more recent book, Dragons Love Tacos. So pick any one of those stories. No David, When Sophie Gets Angry, Curious George, and Dragons Love Tacos. Write the name of the book that you listen to, kind of summarize the plot, 2 or 3 or 4 sentences. These are pretty easy books, so it shouldn't take much. What the overall message they're sending to a child. What's the socialization message here? Is it that, like when Sophie gets angry, it's not bad that you're angry. It's how you take out your anger that kind of gets you in trouble. And what method do they use to get that message across to kids? Do they try to be funny? Do they try to be like, oh, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, a big scary monster is going to come and eat your face? Do they try to use empathy? This is what happened to this kid. Maybe it would happen to you. So the most infamous way to get kids to behave, and this is whether it was your grandparents or your parents or your great-grandparents for hundreds and hundreds of years, has been through fairy tales. So you're going to pick any one of these fairy tales that you may have heard when you were a kid, and you're going to put the name of the fairy tale here. You're going to try to remember what the story was about from memory. Again, try to figure out the message that the story was telling, and then in a minute, you're going to look up what the actual truth is about this story. I want you to find out the truth about your story. What was the author's original tale? Not what Walt Disney wanted you to learn from it. Then you're going to put the summary of the original tale here under the truth. You can find this out by Googling what's the original story of The 3 Little Pigs, or what's the original story of Cinderella. Ooh, that one's pretty gross. Sleeping Beauty, that one's pretty gross too. Actually, most of these are pretty gross. Beauty and the Beast, pretty gross. Then you're going to watch this video, which is going to go through the origins of some famous fairy tales. If you can't find your text, can't find the text online, this will help you here too. In the 1960s, people began to question social norms by using humor. Your grandparents or your parents may remember watching the Rocky and Bullwinkle show. I used to watch that when I was a little kid. And they had this part called Fractured Fairy Tales. So you're going to watch a 1960s version of fairy tales. Then in the 1980s, people kind of, got on this kick. And it's not a kick, it's an important thing, that women aren't just objects and that women are, productive members of society and they don't have to be saved. They can save themselves. So in the 80s, feminism started to recalibrate what was seen as the norm for societal roles. So you're going to watch this fairy tale about, this is one of my favorite books, called The Paper Bag Princess. Then in the 1990s, there was kind of a backlash against what they called PC, or politically correct culture, with something called politically correct fairy tales. So you're going to watch those here. Now, every time from the 1960s, you're going to just record your reaction. It was funny. I thought that's The 1980s, this helped me feel empowered. In the 1990s, this happened. What do each of these retellings reflect about society and what society valued at that time? Okay, so that one's pretty fun. And it may ruin some of your childhood memories. And I'm sorry. Beauty and the Beast is bad. Cinderella was bad. Little Mermaid is bad. All right, I'll talk to you in a minute.